Can you hear me, Ralph?
Yeah.
Never reminded, never taking whatever you told me. I know what I could be. Making emotion paintable answer. Tell me, is this what you made me? I'm the storm that meets the moon. I'm the sun that will not move. Who you think you are? Who you think you
Good evening, folks. I'm doing a show a little early tonight because I have to run out and drive for Uber and Lyft. But we're going to have an interview tonight with Ralph, who was hunting deer and when he was about 16. And 8-foot Bigfoot surprised him, or they surprised each other. So without any further delay, I'm going to go ahead and get out Ralph on here. Ralph, you there?
Yes.
Okay, Ralph, why don't you start out first of all by talking about what you believed in as far as Bigfoot before this happened, and then go ahead and walk us into what you were doing and then what happened.
I thought they were a hoax. And I thought people were just seeing black bears, or, bears of different colors, and just associating them with being something that they couldn't explain. I thought they were just either it was a misidentification or it was just a hoax to get some notoriety. Um, I never seen big footprints or anything like that, and I'd been hunting since I was 7 years old. I've been in the woods for almost 10 years before I seen that. I'd never seen anything that I couldn't explain by just happened naturally or whatever. But today I saw this, everything went out the.
Right. And then, so when you were 16, go ahead and let us know what happened.
Well, that day was it was probably in the middle '60s or so, and it was the last day of our West Virginia antlered buck season. Back then, you couldn't shoot does or anything of that nature. It had to have antlers, and my dad was running the route. and I had to wait on him to get home because it was customary for Dad to take us, so we all kind of with Dad. It ended up being just me and my dad going hunting, and we left the house probably around a little bit before noon or maybe noon, and got in his blazer, and we went out to where we usually deer hunted, and we went out the ridge and parked, and I walked back out the way we came in, and just cut over the hill to the right, walked down about a bench off the top, off the road, and sit down, and it was it's kind of one of those days where everything's kind of quiet. There ain't no, I didn't hear any squirrels, barking or any chipmunks barking, or it's just a quiet evening. It's happened before when I was in the woods and never bothered me. It didn't bother me then. I just sat there and was hoping to see a buck or something come walking through, or and I'd been there maybe half an hour after I sat down and cleared out a good spot and sat down, and was just sitting there waiting, to see if I could see any deer. And about a half an hour into my set, I heard something running, and these three does come running out from behind these big boulders. There were boulders that were there. They're huge. I mean, you probably could take the biggest excavator there is and not move them. That's how big they. And they kind of come out from behind them running, and they ran out in front of me and just kind of stopped and looked behind them and took off running again. And it's kind of typical behavior of does to run whenever there's a buck, chasing them. And I sat there and I kept looking, and I could hear something, coming through the leaves, and I heard some grunts, and I was like, well, that's a buck. So I just raised my rifle up to my shoulder, and I was kind of hoping he'd come out from behind a rock and stop, or come to the edge of the rock and have his front hanging out, and I'd just take my shot there. But then I saw something off to the left, hear it walking through the leaves, and I seen something on top of one of the rocks, and it kind of looked like a red squirrel. And I kind of looked over at it, and I didn't see a tail. Um, I thought that was kind of strange. I didn't know what in the world could make a squirrel lose its tail, but then it stopped, and it kind of didn't move anymore, and I kind of lost sight of it because at that time I was wearing glasses, and I usually picked up stuff that moved a whole lot better. If I catch movement a lot better than I do something stationary. And then it started walking again, and it still looked like a red squirrel. Maybe it had its tail like tucked to one side or something. Because sometimes when they're feeding or whatever, they'll keep their tail flat, and you don't get to see the tail. And finally, it got to the edge of the rock, and I couldn't see it anymore because that part of the rock was a little taller than the other part. And when it stepped out, it was, well, it kind of made me look like I was a 2 year old. The size of it made me look like I was a 2 year old, and I was 5'11", probably around 200 to 225 at this point in time. So I was a pretty big kid, and it made me. I would say it. Compare it to me, it made me look like I was a 2 year old, a toddler. I mean, it just
Yes,
looked
this is live.
huge, and it was just big shouldered, big chested, and I mean, it just was big. I don't know how to describe it any better than that. It's just made me look like I was a kid if I'd have stood beside it. And then it, I can't remember if it took a step or it turned towards me. It's like when it walked out, I could see it. It looked like the face kind of looked like apish, but it had more human features than it did an ape. The face was just a little bit darker than uh, the hair on it was kind of like a dark reddish brown, like a gray, like a red squirrel, a red and a gray mixed red squirrel, and its face was a little bit darker tone, a dark tone, and it and after it stepped out, and I don't like I said, I don't know if it took a step or if it just turned its upper body towards me, but then it looked at me, and I'm sitting there in a blaze orange vest and a blaze orange hat, a pair of blue jeans and a shirt, a light coat underneath the vest, and I knew it could see me, and I had the rifle up, and it its facial expression kind of changed, and I could see its face real good at because it wasn't 15, 20 feet maybe at the most, maybe 25 feet from me, maybe even 30 feet. I don't know. I mean, it's been 34 years, and it's kind of hard to remember all of it, but it's pretty much it's changed the way I think about and about things that may be out there that I don't know that I may not have seen yet or come across. But its face changed from question, kind of like, well, or not a question, but an intense, when you get focused on something, your face kind of lets everybody know you're focused on something. And went from that to it turned and looked at me and like it wasn't surprised. It's kind of like a question, like, why are you here? And then I kind of was, I didn't know what to think. Um, and at that point, um, like I said, I already had the rifle up because I thought it was a buck going to be stepping. It wasn't a buck. So it its facial expression kind of changed again, like to anger, and it bared its teeth at me, and you could see its face, and it had its teeth like stuck out, its lips pulled back, and it it just bared its teeth. And at that point, it was starting to really scare the living daylights. Um, and after that, I didn't know what to do, but when its face changed, it stood there and looked at me for a little bit. I don't know if it took a step. I don't know what it was doing, but it looked like it was intent on me, and I didn't want that. I was 16 years old, and I wasn't afraid of anything, and I wasn't worried about anything. I didn't care if I seen a bear because it's just a bear. They're going to run from it. Most of the time they'll run, but this thing was different. Just brought fear into me, and I was looking over the barrel, not down the sights at it. When it changed its facial expression, I lowered my head down to the sights. I reached up and pulled the hammer back, and when I pulled the hammer back, click, it's an audible click. I mean, you can hear it, a couple 3 feet from you. And as quiet as it was, I'm surprised it probably sounded like a twig breaking or something. Then its face kind of changed from anger to like, uh oh, or oh crap, I'm in trouble. And it stood there with that expression on its face, looking at me, and it just I don't know, probably another 10, maybe 15 more seconds. This whole time it was that I saw it, it probably lasted about a minute and a half before 2 minutes before it finally it turned. I guess it figured out what it was going to do, and it turned and ran away, and it ran down the hill and then kind of took off to the left a little bit to get back, I guess, to put the boulders and more trees between me and it. And then it ran up. I could hear it running off because it was so dry, and I could hear it run. I think maybe it ran up maybe 100 yards or more away from me, and I couldn't see it anymore. And I ran around this point that come off the main ridge, and I was kind of sitting in like a bowl, and I think it ran around the point and got away from me, and then it squalled. And the squall it made, you, it's hard to describe if you've never hunted, never hunted raccoons or never hunted bears, and when they get in fights, they kind of squall. Uh, but this was a lot deeper than any raccoon I've ever heard get in a fight with dogs or another coon or whatever. And
But similar to like when cats get into a fight in an alley and they're like something like that.
yeah, something like that, but a lot deeper and a lot more force behind it, a lot loud. And after it ran off and let that squall out, I pretty much got up and kind of had the gun still on the hammer all the way back, and I know better than that, and I knew better than that then. You don't walk or run with a gun loaded and the hammer fully back. But I guess I kind of had the feeling of if this thing comes after me, I'm gonna have to shoot it and be running at the same time. And I wanted a chance to, I guess, be able to pull the trigger to at least let my dad know, because we were the only ones out there on that one ridge. We hadn't seen any cars, hadn't seen any people. It was just a warm day, and a lot of guys don't. It gets warm like that, they don't even hunt. Uh, and being the last day, there ain't a lot of people out anyway. Uh, but I got up to the road and started out the road back to get to my dad in the truck, and it was getting dark. It was probably 3:30, something to 4 in the afternoon, and that time of year around here it gets dark around 5. And I was I didn't run, but I sure didn't take my sweet time about getting back out the road. And I had a mile and a half walk to get back to the truck. I ran into my dad. He was actually coming out towards where I was at. I got up to him and I just said, "Dad, let's go home." He noticed that my face was white as a ghost, I guess. He thought something was wrong with me, and he said, "All right, well, we'll go. Come on." And and I just kept walking at a fast pace away from him, and finally got out to the truck. And he said, "Do you know your hammer's back?" I just kind of looked at him and didn't say anything, and got and unloaded my rifle real quick, and put the shells in my pocket, and threw the gun in the gun case, and jumped in the truck and I was, come on, Dad, let's go, let's go. He knew something was wrong, but he didn't ask me. You know, he didn't push the issue, but he knew something was going on, and he just left it alone. And we got home, and on the way home, I talked to him about it when we got off the interstate here in my hometown, and I told him what I saw, and he just looked at me and said, "Just don't tell your mom or your grandmother, 'cause that they won't know what to think, or they won't ever let you go hunting." And so I never told my mom or my dad, my mom or my dad's mom. You know, my grandmother lived with us. Never told them what I saw. But from that point on, for the next 3 or 4 years, my dad kind of kept me close. All he would always ask me to go with him, and he always made sure we didn't go in the woods until it was daylight, good enough daylight you could see real good. And he always, from that point on, he told every one of us boys, and there's three of us, and my brother-in-law that always went hunting with Dad, and he told us to always be back at the truck by 4:30. He didn't want nobody staying out past 4:30. Everybody had to be at the truck by 4:30. I do believe my dad believed what I told him, what I saw, and to this day, it still bothers me. I still don't go out, and I'm a 50-year-old man, and I'm not afraid of anything in these woods now. But I think if that thing wanted to kill me, it could have. There'd have been no. There would have been no more of me. It would have killed me and done whatever, and they'd have been looking for me for years.
Yeah, well, that was a pretty interesting story there, Ralph. What can you describe the face for everybody?
Yeah, like I said, when it first stepped out, its face was kind of like a like a dark brown. It wasn't a chocolate, but it was like a kind of like a rich earth kind of color. Not that potting soil color, but just like a rich dirt. Um,
Kind of
the
look like
look,
somebody who's like somebody who's worked out in the fields for a long time, picking
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Um, and in its eyes, there wasn't no whites in its eyes. Um, they were all black. I mean, it was like it was nothing but pupil in its eyes. It was just solid. The nose kind of looked like uh, somewhat like a gorilla's, kind of like smashed a little. You know, flare. Big nostrils and kind of nose was kind of smashed. It wasn't. Uh, and the eyes were just big eyes. I mean, like they were just everything about it just looked. Uh, its mouth wasn't. It wasn't like a gorilla's. It's more like ours. The lips weren't, all puffy and everything, but they were like our lips, and the hair kind of come down along the side of its face. Didn't have any hair on the face. It's kind of like the whole face was just kind of almost like an oval.
So when you say the
With
lips were like our lips, now, are you aware of the whole that their upper lip is actually longer if it comes down farther than ours? Or are you saying that the distance was the same too?
No, I'm saying that their lips weren't. It wasn't like their lips were all puffed out and everything. That's
Like that dome shape that primates have?
yeah,
But the
Yeah,
distance from the nose to where the lips part, was that the same as a human, or was it a little longer?
it's a long. It's a little bit longer. It wasn't. It didn't seem like uh, you know, distance between a grown man's nose and his lip is, I judge it by the way they got mustaches and everything.
Right.
This looked like an inch and a half distance between the bottom of their nose and their lip. That's what I would say it was. An inch and a half.
Yeah, it seems that makes sense. All right, so is true to form and Amy, do you have any questions for Ralph?
Yes, Rick. Hey, I'm just coming into this, brother. Can you get me up to date on what I've missed and what's this interview? I'm just coming into it, bro. You know me. I definitely have questions.
No, Ralph just had it. He was out hunting, and a Bigfoot stepped out from behind a boulder 15 feet away from him, and they had a little face-off, and then the Bigfoot ran off when he cocked his 30-30.
What state and where? Location?
It happened in Work County, West Virginia.
Okay, yeah. So that's very mountainous, rocks, boulders, and I'm getting you, bro, on your definition of the mouth. Whereas you said it was really thin as opposed to being puffy like a celebrity.
Yeah, like somebody does Botox. I've seen them on TV, and it wasn't nowhere near that. It's a regular person's lips. I mean,
Yeah, see, I caught that, and that was my first assumption. Rick, that that goes on what we've talked about, the differences between them.
Yeah, actually, I thought he was talking about, like, on mine, the mouth comes out a little bit more like a primate. I thought that's what he was referring to. But yeah, if you're talking about the lips were very thin instead of having any fullness to them, like an African person, then yeah, that sounds right. That's the way mine is too.
yeah, that's what I was talking about. It didn't have any puffiness. Like I've seen the movie The Planet of the Apes, and it's nothing like.
Could you tell if it was a male or a female?
It was a male. There wasn't any breasts or anything. I mean, it had up top. Its chest area was all male, like a male body build, and you could see
I'll
the
say it for
the
you, Ralph. His pecker.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
yeah, you
wasn't
can
going to
say that.
go there.
Yeah, you can say that on here. You can describe it. We're serious
Well,
about this. So,
well,
was it?
no, I
No, he
you
doesn't
guys have.
want to. He doesn't want to, so I said it for him.
I'm the minister, so I really don't want to talk about stuff like that. I think that's kind of taboo to me. You know what I mean?
Sure. What were you
Yeah,
saying,
I hear
Amy?
you. I hear you, bro. It's nature, though, and we
Yeah.
get it though here. But so, in your best assumption, did it seem like an adolescent male, or what was the size of your sighting?
I would say it was probably close to 8 feet. Um, I'm a pretty big man, and I wear a size 56 coat and a suit. I'd say it would probably need about a 68 size coat, fit across the shoulders, and it was big and muscular, and there wasn't no belly, not like I've got. I mean, there wasn't no, it didn't look like it had a lot of fat on it, if it did have any at all, and it was just huge, like it was all muscle, and there wasn't no, like it hadn't been around or anything like that. Like it actually
So, Ralph,
hunched.
I got a question about the forearms. Did the forearms seem like Popeye, or did they seem in perspective, kind of just like human? Like the biceps were big, then you tapered down into the forearms.
Yeah, they did not look like Popeye. I don't think, in proportion to their biceps, they were about, they were pretty much like a normal a bodybuilder. You know how at their elbow it kind of looks like it's small, but then their arms kind of bulge out just a little bit, but they didn't go over top of the bicep.
Yeah, and that seems about right, Rick. I don't think that they're all yoked out. I think as they get older, the males will get that way. But you know, how many of the photos and videos have we seen where, I mean, they are more proportionate in appearance? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that's what I saw.
So
And
you,
and I would think that in nature, as we all know, things tend to be lean anyway. What time of the year was this sighting?
It was in November. It was the last weekend of November. I would say the 29th, or maybe it might even been the 30th. It was the last weekend of our buck season, and that starts the week of Thanksgiving and then runs the following.
Yeah, that's setting up for the winter months. Rick, what do you think about? Would you think that they would amass weight and calories for the coming winter months?
I would think so. Didn't you say this is West Virginia, Ralph?
Yeah,
Yeah, I would have thought that they'd be fattening up, because humans do. Humans do too. Always have. So I would think that they do. But that doesn't mean that it didn't. That doesn't mean that in the summertime it wasn't even more lean and more cut. It's relative to that particular individual.
yeah. You were asking me a minute ago about the age. I would say it'd have to be a teenager. It didn't look like it was full grown yet in
Yeah, that
size.
makes that makes a lot of sense. And I would think, Rick, the size of about 8 foot, they must grow fast. Nature tends to push that type of attribute out. Do you agree?
Yeah, well, after they hit puberty, they hit one growth spurt pretty much, and then that's it. Well, two. I hit two because I went from 5'9" to 6'4" just from my junior year to my senior year over the summer.
Yeah, that makes sense. And and then as we get older, we tend to bulk out and fill out. So a lot of the sightings that we tend to hear about and read about and study, where they're massively yoked and built, those must be really, really mature males.
Yeah, and my own opinion, and it's speculation, is that I think the females are 7 to 8 and the males are 8. Well, I'll say 7 to 9 for females and 8 to 12 for males.
Yes, I agree with that. With a lot of the stuff that I've studied, I do agree with that. And, you know, in the West Virginia area, the Appalachians, in that area, there tend to be some large reports of large males in those areas.
Well, now I've looked into those, into some of the reports here in West Virginia, and around here we don't call them Bigfoot, we call them Yahoo. And
Similar to Kentucky.
yeah, I guess it's kind of like a Southern Appalachian thing, for the name. But a lot of them that I've looked into, most of them have seen them, being 10 to 12 feet, and that's why I kind of say the one I was looking at was, you know, it was close to 8 foot, was still a kid,
Yeah,
or
I
dude.
I think at adolescent, when they're in their early adulthoods, they're at 8 feet, and then by the time they're full grown, I think it just like males, like I'm 6'4", but other males are full grown at 5'8". I think it depends on the individual, that they can be anywhere from 10 to 12. I've even somebody told me that they found a footprint that was it was 26 inches long, and that's got to be like a 15-footer. So I think it does vary, but I think in general they're 8 to 10, and if they're a tall one, they go higher than that.
Yeah,
20-inch print, Rick. I've never, boy, that's big.
No,
Biggest I think I've
it,
ever.
it was 26 inches.
Yeah, 26. I think the biggest that I've ever studied was like 19, and that's massive. I couldn't imagine a 26-inch print.
Well,
Yeah.
no, they found a 4-inch here in West Virginia.
Oh, maybe that was you, Ralph. Maybe that's who I'm thinking of.
No, it wasn't me. No, it was a 20. I know what you're talking about because I was watching your podcast at the time, and somebody said they found 26 inch, and I think that was. Oh, where was it? They said they were at the like in the Dakotas. I think is where he was saying, or Dakotas or Idaho, one of the two.
Yeah, I don't recall where it was either, but 26, I mean, that's got to be a 15-foot Bigfoot.
Yeah,
Boy,
but they
15
have.
foot, Rick. That's a stretch. But who are we? Is this Old Bear or what's your name, brother? Just so I know.
Ralph.
My name is Ralph.
Okay, yeah, I just wasn't sure. So, Ralph, um, how close were you when the encounter happened, and how long did it happen? And then what was the aftermath of it? Did it just bug out, or you bugged out, or
Well, I was sitting there, and it happened. Like I said, it was about between 3 and 4, 3 o'clock in the evening, right around 3. Um,
Yeah, Phoebe, he would definitely be an all-star.
but the aftermath is it ran off, and when it ran off, it ran over there about 100 yards, and then it squalled, and when it squalled, I kind of jumped up to my feet and kind of half run, kind of up the hill to the road, and then when I got on the road, I kind of I would have made an Olympic fast walker look like they were moving in slow motion going back out the road. I didn't run because I had my rifle at full cock, but I knew that the reason I left it at full cock was because I knew I was only going to get one shot to protect myself, and that was it. And since then, I don't stay out in the woods. I usually don't get out in the woods now and go to my tree stand to bow hunt or to gun hunt until it's almost full daylight. And to this day, I still don't stay out past 4:30. I usually start leaving the woods 4:15 to 4:30 latest.
yeah, I fully understand you there, brother. So you were bow hunting. Were you in your tree stand when it happened, or were you on the
No,
ground at that point?
no, I wasn't bow hunting. I was rifle hunting. It was rifles. I had a 30-30 lever action rifle, model 94 30-30.
Just a second, guys. Hey, Bert, if you're trying to figure out your microphone, you have to go into your audio settings and enable push to talk. Go ahead, guys.
So you were hunting you were rifle hunting, and so you were on the ground and you were stalking. Were you moving through the woods, or were you stationary at that point?
I was sitting on my butt. I was sitting right on the edge of a flat. A flat's like a little small level place on the side of a
Yeah,
hill.
Bert, you also have to turn on or like mute your YouTube.
There
Yeah,
was a
and
flat
yeah,
just below
I
the
understand that. Yeah, I understand that thoroughly, and you were waiting for game to come to you.
right.
So, oh my goodness, so that encounter there was how. So, did it approach you, or all of a sudden it was just there?
No. When I when I when I was sitting there, it come out. I could hear something walking behind that rock, and I was looking for a buck to step out. Uh, but before, I thought there was like whenever I heard something behind the rock, I thought it was a squirrel that was on top of the. I could just see the top of its head, I guess, and it looked like a red squirrel, uh, an old red squirrel that had gray in its fur with still the red coloration, but I couldn't see a tail. And I thought maybe that red squirrel had its tail flat out on the rock or something and was eating nuts that had fallen on top of the rock or whatever, and then it walked out. It stopped, and I lost sight of the squirrel, which turned out to be a Bigfoot.
Yeah, I know that it's scenario exactly when you hear the noises and sounds when you're hunting that way and you're waiting for a buck to come out. I thoroughly know that situation. I thoroughly know what you're describing.
That must have been quite the shocker, though, when you're expecting a little squirrel to come around there, and whoop, there's a big 8-foot Bigfoot.
So Rick, what?
This way, if I didn't have the hunting training that my father gave me from the time that I was 7 years old, and being taught to always be ready for anything, and I had an older brother that was in the Air Force, and and he taught us, kind of like when he came home, and he teach us, self control and how to take situations and how not to get buck fever and so on and so forth. And this thing stepping out from going from a squirrel to thinking, well, there's a deer on the backside of the rock and there's a squirrel on top of it, to being this humongous thing that I had thought that it was nothing but a hoax. Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't soil myself and wet myself at the same time.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah. I've often heard those same reactions. So Rick, what do you think of this encounter? Do you think that Squatch was thoroughly aware that he was there and was approaching him, or do you think the whole scenario on both ends was just a happen of circumstance?
Well, actually, I don't think I could make that decision. I mean, Ralph, when it came around to Boulder, did it look directly at you like it knew you were sitting there, or did it all of a sudden go, "Oh, there you are. Hey, what's up?"
It kind of, when it came out from behind the boulder, it looked like it was intent on the deer that had come through maybe 5 minutes before.
Yeah, it sounds like you both were deer hunting.
Well, yeah. The only thing was, though, is I wished he wouldn't have been deer hunting and would have been that buck that I was waiting.
Hey, Robin, you have to go into your audio settings and enable push to talk.
So this was November, and what is that? Is that anywhere near Morgantown or Elkins?
No, that is that's another 250 miles or so away from Morgantown. It's closer to Charleston.
Okay, yeah, I've been through Charleston a few times. I got you. That that is mountainous down there. That's getting into the mountain. That's getting into the area.
Well, the area that I was in, not more than from where I was sitting, I could be to the Little Canal River,
Definitely,
where
Browndorf.
it runs through Wirt County, within a 45-minute walk. I was near the Little Canal River.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you something, Ralph. Have you in all your years there in the area, have you heard a lot of reports over the years from friends, neighbors, people in the area? I mean, is it pretty prevalent in the area?
Well, the area I live in now, it's not really prevalent, but once you get out away from, because I live just a little north of Charleston, it's kind of like it's not a suburb, it's more country like, where I live, and but you don't hear a lot about it. But now you get up into the mountainous areas of the
Bert,
state, up into
you
Greenbrier and
Bert,
Raleigh
you
County
were in
and
the
places
chat room.
like that.
I saw you. You were there the whole
You
time.
hear a lot more reports.
You just have to enable push to talk.
Yeah, so at the time of your encounter, this isn't something that you've studied. This is just something that just happened to you, And that usually is how it plays out. That usually is true to form how the sightings play out. It's just something that happens on the spur of the moment.
Yeah, like I said before I saw this thing, I thought it was just a hoax. You know, somebody trying to get attention or them misidentifying a bear standing up on its hind leg. You know, a collar phase bear. You know, a cinnamon collared or a reddish brown collared bear. Because bears do sometimes they do have different colored fur. And we have black bear here, and I bear hunt now. Uh, and I've seen quite a few bear in my lifetime, and I thought it was just maybe a big bear that we have around here. I've seen him up to 7 foot around, and I
Yeah.
thought it was something of that nature.
Yeah, I get you there, bro. So let me ask you, how does this affect you personally now, how you approach going into the woods? I'm sure it's changed you up.
Well, typically when I go bow hunting, um, like I went this morning, uh, like I said, I don't go in the woods right still dark. I don't go to my tree stand when it's still dark. I get out of my tree stand before it gets dark, bow hunt, and I usually don't carry a handgun with me because I really couldn't find one that I think that would put one down if if it came up walking up to my tree stand or whatever, and I'm sitting in a tree stand and I didn't used to have a gun that was big enough to take it down. I do now.
Yeah, I hear you. Let me guess. I was going to recommend a few for you, and I don't recommend, having to put one down, but I don't go in the field unarmed because I know that's unpredictable. I'm not going to be a victim. But I was going to recommend a Ruger 500 or even the Glock 10. The Glock 10 millimeter is really popular now in Alaska as a sidearm for brown bear.
They can keep the Glock 10. I've shot bear with the Glock 10 around here out of a tree, and they get up and walk off with those. And I put a shot on them right there in there, right in the boiler room, and that bear still walk off.
The
I
Glock
got
10 is just a 40 millimeter, right? Or 40 caliber.
Yeah, yeah. It's a 40 millimeter yoked up. It's got a longer casing, but maybe the 500 Ruger, that might be something you want to think about.
I got a 500 Smith now.
Okay, yeah. Smith has a model too. Yeah. Is yours is the chamber on the cylinder a 6?
No, it's only a 5.
Okay, yeah.
Hi, Laura.
I had started to buy the 454 Cazul, and I seen the 500 Smith, and the different bullet is not great, but it's more than enough to put a bigger.
Yeah, the 454 Cazul, that's a choice. And, if you was to go with like a Desert Eagle or something like that, you'd have a larger magazine. And I've always looked at that aspect of things. But Rick has a good choice as well. And that's, Rick, you believe in that 12 gauge with a Bernanke round, right?
Yeah, with a 12 gauge, you're either going to put it right in his temple or his throat, or you need to use buckshot and hit him in the knees to take him down, I think. You're not going to... the Bernanke might, if you hit a nice shot dead square in the chest, exactly where it needs to go, but you're not going to be able to take that time to do that. So you're going to need something where, you're going to shoot him in the side of the head, the ear, the throat, or the knees to kneecap him and take him down. Other than that, I'd wanted to get a 45-70 because I think that would take him down.
Well, I looked at the performance aspects of the Bernanke rounds, especially those barrier penetrators. I got to tell you something, man. Those really got some ass to them.
Well, the Black Magic Magnum is the most powerful one. You're talking about the breach rounds. Is that what you're talking about, or the Special Forces round?
Yeah, the barrier penetrators to penetrate walls, the barriers. Yeah, but
the Black Magic Magnum is much more powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's unfortunate that we got to discuss this aspect of it, but just the same, you don't want to be a victim, and I do believe in that.
Well, the way I look at it is, I bought a 300 Magnum to deer hunt with. That's way overpowered for a whitetail. But the area that I deer hunt in now, um, it's actually connected to like a 4-H camp. There's no one that hunts over there, so there's no one that goes in there and bothers anything. Um, we have heard howls from that area. If they make the mistake to coming over on my side and it's deer season and I got that rifle with me, um, and if it knows I'm there and comes towards me, I'm gonna unload that 300 and I'm gonna pull that 500 and I'm gonna finish emptying it into it. It's not gonna get anywhere close to me. I
Yeah,
point that
I'm
hole.
sure that it sounds like that area. I'm sure they're using that as a stronghold. I'm sure Rick agrees with me. I'm sure that might be, and I know that in the West, in the Virginias, that I believe it's. I truly believe this, Rick. I think it's one of their strongholds,
What is that exactly?
like the Virginia area, West Virginia,
Well,
those
they
areas
do.
in there.
That is the type of area I was talking about. That if I was going to go searching, I would look because they got a lot of old abandoned farmhouses and barns and stuff that are just out there in the middle of nowhere, you know. And I think that they use those things to hold up. Plus, there's a lot of caves out there.
Yeah, yes,
Oh, there's
exactly. I just was going to comment on that. The caves and the mountain slopes and the rock formations. It's just endless. And that's why I believe in the eastern half of the United States, the Appalachian Range, from North Alabama all the way up to where it goes, is a stronghold. And I believe they range out from there.
well, guys. It's not only things that it's not only caves and stuff like that. They go into these old coal mines. Personal coal mines that these miners have had, to provide, heat for their family in the wintertime and stuff like that.
I wasn't aware of personal mines, but the coal mines, yeah.
Yeah, I've had a couple of guys that I've talked to that are right around kind of southeast of Charleston, and they've talked about running into a couple of them around old coal mines and not the surface mines, but the deep mine, and they've seen them come out of those deep mines after they've been closed off. And after a while, the block that they put up in front of them, they deteriorate or they just bust through them and go into them. Uh,
Yeah, that's
once they
interesting.
pull
That
the
it-
eye
that
out,
that
close.
expands my theory on the outhouses or outbuildings and the caves to coal the mines. Hadn't even thought of that. That makes it a really great place for them to be.
Well, I
Yes,
can take you to a place right now that was an old strip mine, and they had deep mines in it too. And we bear hunt in there, and I'm 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 about 98.999% sure that they're hanging out in that area too, because there's a lot of deer, big deer in there, and there's bear in there. There's all kinds of turkey and all kinds of squirrel stuff for them to catch, and there's all kinds of berries in there and everything. And I've seen a little bit of evidence of them being in the area by stick structures, and I don't know what the stick
yeah,
structure is meaning, but maybe that's a thing of saying food's this way and a safe place is over here or whatever. But
Well, let me ask you
we've
something,
I've seen
Ralph.
some,
Have you ever seen the where they've pulled a tree out of the ground, turned it upside down, and shoved it back in?
yes sir.
Do you see a lot of it, or are they very sparse?
Around here it's kind of prevalent.
Seriously, because I've always wondered what they were using that for. I thought maybe they were using it like for boundary markers or something, because it would be something they could see from a long distance.
I'm sure that's what that has been my assumption too, Rick. Is that behavior there is that along with the tree breaks and the stick. Hey, Rick, have you found any stick struck, weird formations when you're out and about,
I can't get out and about yet, so.
No, I meant Ralph, but I got a question for Ralph. So in your encounter, were you able to get a good look at the skin texture and the coloration of the skin, the facial skin, or anything like that?
Yeah, the color of the skin was kind of like a dark, not a chocolate, but like a kind of like a rich earth, not your topsoil dark and stuff.
Like a really dark tan.
And it looked like it's the texture of the skin was kind of semi smooth, but it had a little like weatherization. Like you've been out in the sun a lot, and you're 40 years old.
Leathery.
The skin, a little bit of leather look to it, not a lot.
Well, let me ask you this, Ralph. The one I saw, it had, right, people usually get lines like crow's feet and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The one I saw had wrinkles that run vertically up and down its face. Did you see that?
Not around his cheekbone. I mean, the cheeks and the mouth didn't have a lot of wrinkles, I guess you would call them, but around its eyes, like it would, like it had crow's feet around its eyes.
But did it have the wrinkles that ran, like, say, more closer to the nose, not the outside of the cheek, but like where our nasal labia is, only vertical, like, creases running up and down? If you've ever seen a monkey where they have on their upper lip, they have these lines going up and down, yeah, that kind of thing, only the entire soft part of the face, not where there was bone underneath.
Right. Yeah, it had some lines there above its lip, like where your mustache area would be.
Right.
It had some lines in there, but they weren't, deep lines.
No, they were very fine, but I noticed that they ran all the way from like the bags under its eyes all the way down its face.
Well, not this one. When you got to the cheekbones on the face, there wasn't.
Oh, that's interesting. So maybe that has something to do with age, because I kind of assumed mine was a juvenile, but I saw it through the window. I never saw its whole body, didn't know how tall it was or anything like that. But I did note those creases in its face, and I thought, maybe it's a juvenile because it didn't have hair all over its face like most people talk about. It only had it like out to the cheeks, and that was it. So I always assumed it was young, but maybe it's actually older than I thought it was.
But it could have been, it could be like I've kind of found that they're aging. It's like they age 2 years or 3 years to every man.
Yeah, that makes sense. You got to figure in nature, weathered, it'll be probably a little bit quicker. But Rick, that falls into place of what we believe is that, the subtle differences, and we don't believe that they all are identical.
Just a second. Yeah, Phoebe, I actually do believe that the East Coast has more of those kind of outbuildings and mines and stuff like that for them to hide in, because that's the oldest part of the country. That's where we first settled, and for hundreds of years, that's where we were. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, no, that's a fact, Rick. You're dead on there. That is a fact. I mean,
well,
the evolution.
All you need to find out that is come to West Virginia and drive some of our back roads.
Exactly.
The evolution of the evolution of the country was from east to west. So, yeah, you're right on there, Rick.
Yeah, my where I don't know if you know, Ralph, but where I saw mine was in the mountains of Virginia, in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and it's very similar. It's just down the road a piece from you, as they say.
Was it over off 81 corridor or off 64 corridor or 77 corridor?
You know where Kingsport, Johnson City, Gate City, all that stuff is down in the southeast by Cumberland Gap?
Yep, I drive tractor and trailers, so I'm through there all the time.
Yeah, it's little. You might have been through Duffield. This is actually over the mountain from Duffield in a little town called Stickleyville.
Stickley? I've been to Stickley.
Stickleyville.
Stickleyville?
Yeah, it's real small. Just a couple of stores and a school, basically.
Oh, well, I don't know if I don't think I've been there, but I know I've been in that area quite a few times. Uh,
Yeah, when you come down off, I think it's Route 68 or 64, one or the other, and it runs straight out to Cumberland Gap on the outside corner of Virginia. But you come up over the mountain, and it goes down into a valley. And as you get to the bottom, it says, "Welcome to Stickleyville." And then after about an eighth of a mile, it says, "You're now leaving Stickleyville," as you go up the ridge on the other side.
yeah, that's typical towns here in West Virginia. If you blink, you miss them.
Exactly, yeah.
So, so Ralph, let me ask you, now that you've had your encounter and what you've experienced, what is your attitude and thoughts towards the secret or the lack thereof perpetrated on humanity? Have you thought about that? Do you ever think about that?
Well, that is kind of tempered with biblical knowledge, because, like I said, I'm a minister and I've looked into what the Bible says about these things, and uh, it's. I think the government and the scientists that say there's no such thing and all that. They do it to keep from having a mass panic and hysteria across the U.S. With this many sightings, and with what I know about them, and what I've read about them, and what I've talked to other people about them, if they knew they were there, they would call for their extinction.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
agree.
think
That would
I
cause
think that I mean we all have our opinions, and then and I think it runs the full gamut of what everybody thinks. And
Yeah, but I have shockingly, I was actually surprised to hear that there are people out there who are like, "I don't give a crap. Kill them all. Just get rid of them. They're a nuisance. They're a problem. They're dangerous. Just get rid of them." And I was shocked at that kind of an attitude.
yeah, well, unfortunately, that's a portion of humanity. But so, Ralph, let me ask you: do you feel with what you saw that that is some form of humanity?
I feel um, at that point in time, I would say it was something related, but nowadays, I would say it's part man.
It's part man. Is that what you said?
Yeah, part of mankind.
So it's
I mean, it
another
would be.
another humanoid, another human line lineage.
I would say that it had part human in it. Uh, that's the easiest way to put it.
Yeah, well, that's my assumptions. It's a form of humanity, and in therein lies the secrecy. And then, for whatever reason, the secret is kept going for so long, it exposes more. So that part of the whole subject is confusing.
Well, let me point something out here. We talk about in terms of it's part human and part primate. Well, in reality, we are part human. We are mostly primate because chimpanzees and stuff are only 98%. There's a 2% difference between us. So the part that makes us human is very small. We're actually mostly primate, which means that if we're saying, "Oh, well, they're mostly primate and part human," that only has to be like a 1% change from us. I mean, we think of human in terms of we're just human, we're all human, but we're actually more primate than human. It's that small percentage that makes us who we are.
Yes, I agree 100%, Rick. We believe in
Well,
our human reality as only as we know it. And yes, I agree with you 100%.
right. I agree with you a little bit. Um, I mean, I don't believe they're half human, half ape. I think they're a third human and a third ape and a third something else, but that's from a biblical understanding.
Well, that's kind of my point. Even humans are not a third human. We're only like 3% human. That's what makes us human. Where the rest of us is ape. You know, we are 98% ape and 2% human. That's what makes us human. You know, that's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, my belief on it is it follows along the lines of what Goliath and how he came to be, and it came along the lines of the out of the book of Enoch. That's not in the Holy Bible, but it is one of the books that are.
Yeah, I've read it.
Yeah,
And I believe that way. And that's what they are. I mean, people laugh at me for it, but it explains it to me to to a better degree than what science.
So
well,
you're trying to say you think they're the Nephilim, well, or something like that, right?
Well, I believe that they are part. They are a third angel, a third fallen angel, I should say. Whatever the fallen angel did with animals of this earth, and then did with human women, is what I believe. How the Bigfoot came to be, because the Book of Enoch speaks of them before the flood and after the flood. So I mean that's for someone that doesn't that is not religious or doesn't have faith in Christ. It's kind of hard for them to understand.
Well, I've been an ordained minister for 20 years, and I've read the Bible several times, and I've read the Book of Enoch several times. And I'm going to do a show that's specifically about the Nephilim, because part of the problem is that most religions and most people who study quote unquote religion are studying the English version. And when you look at the original text, the meanings to some of those words are completely different than what people
Right.
get from the English version. So the Nephilim aren't exactly what everyone says they are if you look at the original context of the original words. So
Yeah, like in the Torah.
exactly.
well, I think we all agree that they are definitely a flesh and blood creature.
Of some
Oh,
kind,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, species. And one of the greatest dynamics of this whole subject is the secrecy and the reasoning for the secrecy. Now, when we get to the root of that, that exposes, I think, a lot.
Well, I can tell you the root of it. It's simple. It's about the almighty dollar. The federal government knows that they would have major lawsuits on their hands to set up areas for them to be in, and that would take people out of the woods. You wouldn't get all the money from the hunting licenses, the stamps. You would not have people driving across the U.S. to go to Colorado to elk hunt or Idaho or anywhere like that. You're talking a multi-billion-dollar industry that happens in the fall alone, and not let alone the visitation that they go to national parks. People go to the mountains in the summertime, drive the campers out there, pay for all the gas, tourism. The economy in the U.S. would stop. Period.
See, I don't agree with that, because look at how many grizzly bears are out there. People know grizzly bears could kill and eat you, but they still go out there. And some of them are stupid enough to go, "Oh, look at the pretty bear," and start throwing bread to it and stuff.
Well, yeah, they do that because that's something that they know is there, and the government tells you it's there, and the government has it there so you can see it.
Well, that's my
But if
point.
it's not
Once they know the
big
Bigfoot
enough,
is there, it's going to be the same.
Well,
man,
I'll tell you
something that
what.
big can kill you with
One
one
of,
swat, one little smack of its hand and break your neck. I mean, a bear can do that too, but a bear has to. A bear has a different type of mentality towards you.
Yeah.
They're afraid of you. A Bigfoot's not.
I,
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if a
I feel
grizzly is afraid of a human. I think a grizzly bear is not afraid, but a black bear, yes, not a grizzly.
yeah, I feel the Squatches are a form of humanity, and they have that sentience about them that
Yeah.
which puts them a notch above bears. But having said that, it makes you gotta wonder the cover up to save dollars and the hundreds and thousands of lives that we know of that have gone missing, and they allow that to happen.
It's which. Okay. Think as yourself as a politician. Which would you rather have? Votes and keep the lie hidden and keep that money coming into your pocket and into your family? Or would you rather come out and tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth and show all the evidence
Guys, I'm
and
actually going to
stop
have
the
to shut
economy
down
and
the
stop the
stream
money
here
coming
shortly
into
because
your
I have to
pocket?
get ready to go to work.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. I agree with you 100%. I was just saying you got to think about that aspect of
You
humanity
can
for a minute.
continue on in Discord
Our
without me. That's
values
fine.
as human beings, how we put the value of a dollar bill above the value of a human life to cover up the missing, the kidnap, or whatever have you that is associated with this. And Rick and I have talked about this in the last few nights. The 411, the missing, you know,
Yeah.
even the missing children in the rural areas, which he might make a show of. It makes you wonder the value that humanity has put on the dollar above the value of a human life.
Well, how much is your body worth to science? How much is it now, Rick? $1.25?
I don't know, actually. Not
Well,
much.
I know
Well,
whenever I was
I'll tell you. Well, I'll tell you. To me, it's priceless, and I'll tell you. You referring to you, you'll say it's priceless.
right. I understand that. I mean, every life to me and everyone in this world, I don't care what color your skin is or what your national origin is. I don't care. Your life means the world to me.
I think
And that's
Ralph
the way
is.
I look at all of humans.
I think Ralph is
But,
talking about like the price if you donated your body to science after you died, not your living life.
right. I mean, science looks at you as a dollar sign.
Well, we are talking about the living life when I refer to the missing, because
Right.
as you and I have discussed, Rick, the missing cases, and you want to delve into the subject of the rural cases, children and whatnot. I mean, if they know that's going on, and the government and the cover up is centered in that, and they still value the dollar over that, and will just keep it a complete secret to humanity, that's really got to make you think.
Hold on just a second, guys.
Hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and shut down the YouTube stream, but the Discord conversation will continue on. I'm going to have to jump out here in a little bit because I have to get ready to go to work, but you guys can keep on talking. That's what it's here for. So, everybody, until next time, y'all take it easy.